Hello everyone. Today I'm going to give you a tour of our truck camper's 12 volt electrical system. Hey guys, been looking forward to doing this video for a long time. Probably the biggest thing that we got added to our truck camper was a 360 amp hour lithium battery by Expion360. This particular battery is pretty amazing. 360 amp hours in a very small footprint that measures basically 13 by 15 and is only 10.5 inches tall. The battery itself weighs 95 pounds and really packs a punch in a small footprint when it comes to power. As you know, lithium batteries offer a number of advantages over lead acid batteries, the biggest being the usable capacity between 90 and 100%. The company actually says 100%, but I typically don't like to go below 90% usable capacity, so I like to keep it below that figure. Typically, when you charge the battery, you typically want to keep the battery between 20 and 80% state of charge for long-term storage. You don't want to really keep the battery at 100% state of charge all the time. Let's say it's in storage. You don't want to run it with a continuous charge at 100%, especially if there's large fluctuations in temperature during the course of the day, because that can stress out the battery. So unlike lead acid, you don't want to keep the batteries at 100% all the time. That doesn't mean you can't charge them to 100% when you're boondocking. You can do that. It just means that you can't or you shouldn't keep them charged at that point all the time in long-term storage. Yeah, typically when we boondock, the battery state of charge is usually right around 70-80% every day. After each night, I should say, and during the day we'll charge it back up to 100% using our solar power or our DC to DC charger, which charges via the truck's alternator. So basically we have those two main primary means of keeping the battery charged, being the solar power and the DC to DC charger, which I'll go into more in a little bit here. More about the battery though. This particular battery is fairly new. They call it a cube battery. Like I said, it measures 13 by 15 and is only 10.5 inches tall. The battery has its own built-in battery monitoring system, which has a 32-degree cutoff. That's important because you don't want to charge your batteries below that temperature, or it can cause damage to the lithium cells themselves. The lithium cells that are in this battery are high density cells, which is why they were able to cram so many amp hours in such a small footprint. If you looked at our previous photograph or photos of our previous setup that we had two Group 24 batteries, each rated for 120 amp hours a piece, which is pretty high for Group 24. But these were lithium batteries, of course. And now we have basically the equivalent of three of those 120 amp hour batteries in our camper now, but yet the size is only like 2.5 batteries. So you're getting a lot of amp hours per square inch basically when you have lithium batteries made by Expion360, because they do use high density cells. So that's a really big advantage. And of course the other savings with lithium is the weight. Lithium batteries are typically 50% lighter than a lead acid battery. For example, the two golf cart batteries that we had in our truck camper, our last truck camper, each weighed 66 pounds apiece. And that's for a 220 amp hour system comprised of two 6-volt batteries. So 66 pounds apiece, that's a lot of weight. So right there, you can already see the savings that you're getting. And plus with those 220 amp hour 6-volt batteries, you're only getting 50% usable capacity. So in essence, you have a 110 amp hour system with those two golf cart batteries. This battery is 3 times that, and it's all usable capacity, which is awesome. So if you're a boondocker, you like to boondock, I highly recommend going lithium, especially if you typically boondock in warmer climes. That includes places like Arizona during the winter time. So if you do a lot of winter camping, probably going lithium is not the way to go, because you do have that temperature concern. You don't want to damage the batteries. But if you do like to basically camp the other 4 seasons in warmer climates, or in places like Arizona or Florida during the winter time, then lithium is definitely the way to go, especially if you like to boondock. Now, if you typically just go from campground to campground or RV park to RV park, then you basically don't want to go with lithium. It would be a waste of money, in my opinion, especially if you just want to keep the lights on and run the water pump and stuff like that in between parks. That extra expense is really not worth it. So how much does this battery cost? Well, they list it for $4,000. So that's a lot of money. There is a high upfront cost associated with going lithium, no doubt about it. So that's the big negative. And of course, the other negative is charging below 32 degrees, which you typically don't want to do. Now, in our camper, we have the lithium battery located in the dinette seat, so we do keep it nice and warm. It has a little vent that goes to it to allow the battery to vent out if it needs to, especially with the DC to DC charger in there. So it does get some airflow in there. But we basically recommend, or I highly recommend, keeping your lithium batteries inside the camper rather than being located on the outside of the camper, and those little, which you typically find is just a little battery compartment on the outside that holds no more than 1 or 2 batteries. So if that's all your battery or your camper has, is just a small battery compartment that can hold 2 small batteries, 2 Group 27s or 2 Group 24s, then you could go with a smaller lithium battery, but you'd need to put some kind of warming device on them, like wrap the batteries in like one of those warming blankets, or you can even use a water tank heater, which is what I did on my last camper. I just wrapped the batteries with that, and if it got really cold, I would just turn those little wrap blankets on, and they would work just fine. So, but with them being inside the camper like they are, it's really not needed. It's overkill to wrap the batteries or have some kind of heating system, especially since we rarely go below 32 degrees. Anyways, when we camp, and typically the inside of the camper gets no colder than 50, 55 degrees in the wintertime. That's what we typically set our Truma Combi for. Now, as far as the, like I mentioned, the charging devices, we have a DC to DC charger. It's a 25 amp model, also by Expion360. We just had that installed a few months ago, and that thing works awesome. Just published a review on that not too long ago on the website at truckcamperadventure.com. And we also have our solar power system, of course, which is our primary means of keeping the batteries charged. It's a 500 watt system. We have 2 170 watt panels on the roof, and a portable 160 watt panel that we deploy when we need it. We don't always need that portable panel, but it's there just in case, especially let's say you're camping in the wintertime when the sun typically tracks lower in the sky. So we'll use that just to get a better angle to the sun, that angle of incidence on the panel, which is something that you want to maximize as much as possible. And so that's our primary means, basically, of keeping the battery charged, is solar power, with our secondary being, of course, the DC to DC charger. The other means of keeping the batteries charged, of course, is our Progressive Dynamics. It's a 45 amp converter charger, which we use when we're connected to shore power. That typically puts out like 30 amps when you're just first plugging in and getting your batteries up to where they need to be. But we use that at the house, of course, and then I'll just turn it off and on, so we're not keeping it 100% state of charge all the time. So that works well for us. So again, just to reiterate what I was saying before with the battery itself, lithium batteries, you don't want to keep them at a 100% state of charge all the time, because it can stress out the batteries. So that's something that you don't hear a lot. A lot of people don't know that. but it can cause damage to the batteries. It can stress them out. That's something that you don't want to do. Kind of like, you know, you have the plates sulfating with on the lead acid batteries. It's even though it's conversely something converse, because the with lead acid batteries you want to keep them at 100% all the time to prevent the battery plates from sulfating. But with lithium, the difference is you don't want to keep them at 100% because it can stress out the plates and the chemistry that's in the batteries. So just something to be aware of. Now we have the battery wired directly to our inverter. We have it hardwired to a 3,000 watt Xantrex inverter with a transfer relay. And this transfer relay allows the camper to automatically switch over from shore power or to off-grid power, which is really nice. What that allows the camper to do is all the outlets are basically charged and activated, whether we're on shore power, which is normal, of course. And then when we turn on the inverter, all those outlets will be connected to the inverter, which is really nice because typically, you know, with a lot of inverters, you either have to plug in directly into the inverter itself, or you might have a dedicated outlet that's inverter connected. So, you know, the benefit, of course, is all the outlets in the camper run off this inverter, which is awesome because we have outlets all throughout the camper. We've got them here in the dinette area. We've got a couple in the kitchen, one in the bathroom area there, and of course we've got two back in the cab over area, which is really nice. Also connected to the breaker box, we have the Truma Combi. The Truma Combi is something I'll be doing a review on soon. This water heater combination furnace is a really nice unit. It's super quiet, very efficient, and has two modes of powering it. One 110 and the other being propane. So we're able to run on both of those power sources, which is really nice. Of course, if we're on shore power, you can just run it directly off of that, or we can also run it off the inverter, which is nice because let's say that we run out of propane and it's cold out, so we can always just do that, and which is really nice. We also have our brand new Truma Aventa air conditioner wired to the inverter breaker box, which is really nice. We used that a couple times during the summertime. We would stop for lunch, for example, and it was near St. George, and the temperatures around there were like 100 degrees. So that was really nice to be able to have a lunch break, go back in the camper, turn on the inverter and the air conditioner, and eat within the comfortable confines of our truck camper, which was really nice to be able to do that. And then I took a little nap after that, so we just ran it, and which is pretty cool. We'll be, like I said, we're doing a review on the Truma Aventa air conditioner as well. We did publish an article not too long ago on the top 8 low amperage air conditioners for truck campers, and this is definitely one of them. It consumes about 100 amps DC, which is pretty high, but when you're pulling full solar at the same time, you're typically, what we see is right around 70 amps DC, which is pretty decent. So you know, you can't run it all day, obviously, because you run your batteries down all the way, but typically where we camp up in the mountains, we don't need to run the air conditioner. But when we're traveling, or we do happen to camp in a fairly warm area, let's say it's in the 80s or the 90s during the day, and it gets a little warm inside the camper, we may turn on the air conditioner, which is really nice. It's nice to have that flexibility and ability to go between air conditioner or just running the fans, depending upon the temperature outside. So it does give us a lot of versatility having that inverter. We also have our dual cooktop. It's by True Induction. It has an induction cooktop on one side, and on the other side it has a propane burner. So like the Truma Combi, we can actually operate this cooktop on DC through the inverter, AC through the inverter actually, or we can run it on propane, which is really, really nice to be able to have that versatility. Because sometimes in the wintertime we don't want to run the fans and run the propane, and and having to deal with the odor and aerating the camper out. So it's nice to just be able to just turn on the induction cooktop. Since it's so fast and so efficient, we can boil water and cook meals really quick on there, which is awesome. It's kind of like a little microwave approach to cooking, where it uses induction, and it's just as fast as a microwave in many cases in cooking food. It's really quick and really convenient, and a great way to cook clean, and you know, only the pan heats up, and when it's off, the burner cools off really fast. And yeah, there's a lot of nice things about the induction cooktop also. We'll be doing a review on that also soon. So a lot of these devices out in the camper right now that we're using are fairly new, and devices that we really you know, feel strongly about. They're very, very nice, and give our truck camper a lot of versatility off grid, which is something that we really like having, rather than just depending upon like our last camper, everything ran on propane except for the refrigerator, which was a DC compressor. If you run out of propane, you're screwed when you're off grid. So you always want to make sure that you keep those propane tanks full. But sometimes, you know, circumstances happen and you run out of propane, and it's just nice having a dual or two sources of keeping the camper powered. One being battery and solar power, and the other one being propane. It's nice to have that versatility. So that's basically it, guys, for the electrical system in the camper. Like I said, we're really happy with our setup. It gives us a lot of versatility and a lot of convenience on the road and when we're camping off grid, and that's just makes everything much more enjoyable. Because like you, we don't like staying at campgrounds or RV parks. You do it when you need to do it. You know, if you need a shower, you need to fill up on your water. Let's say your batteries are super low or something like that. You know, every once in a while stopping at an RV park or campground is nice, but typically our MO is to avoid those type of places and boondock off grid. So that's it, guys. Please like and share, and spread the word. I'll be doing another video soon on the Truck Camper Adventure Rally in Quartzsite, which ought to be pretty fun. We've done 2 rallies the last 2 years, and they've both been growing in size and popularity. And so look for a video on that real soon. All right, guys, it was great talking with you. Look for another video soon.